The Steelcase Leap is arguably one of the top 2 most popular chairs in the world. The other competitor for that #1 spot is the Herman Miller Aeron. But trying to buy one of these things new can be quite expensive. But because these things are so popular, there are a ton of them on the used marketplace for a fraction of the price. So we're gonna be teaching you how to buy the best used Leap possible. We're gonna talk about all of its features, the price you can expect to pay, and tips and tricks for things you should look out for, again, so you can buy the best used Leap. Now joining me in this video is David Crandall from CrandallOffice.com. David is an expert in all things Steelcase Leap. They actually sell used Steelcase Leaps. They actually make them better on their website, CrandallOffice.com, and this video is not sponsored whatsoever. David graciously agreed to share his time and his wisdom on these chairs, so I do want to give them a quick plug. I think that the remanufactured Leap V2 is the best version of the Leap. I talk about this in a full video, which you guys can find over here. But yeah, highly recommend you check them out if you don't feel like going on Craigslist or Facebook and hunting for that perfect chair. They're also super active on Reddit, and the people of Reddit give them glowing reviews. Starting with the features, the Leap actually has 2 versions. Version 1, which was released in 1999, and version 2, which was released in 2006, and it's still being sold today, although Steelcase just calls it the Leap now. But they're easy to tell apart. Version 1, think more rounded, think more circly. The back is gonna be much more circled at the top, think ping pong paddle. And then generally, mostly true, not always, but the arms are also gonna be more bubbled as well. Now there is a way to date your chair, but we'll talk more about that in the tips and tricks section. And generally, the version 2 has been better reviewed than the version 1, or it's got better reviews than version 1, but the version 1s are also hardly available on the used market, whereas the market is flooded with version 2s. In terms of the adjustments, the tabs and knobs and everything, all Leaps pretty much come with the exact same thing except for 2 upgrades. So if you're not as familiar with the Leap, all Leaps will be able to go up and down. They have the ability for their seat pan to come in and out to adjust for various leg sizes. They have 5 different levels of tilt back. So you've got the upright, and then you've got 4 different tabs that allow you to go a little lower, little lower, little lower. And then you've got this knob on the right that's going to adjust the ability, how easy it is to lean back. And then you've got the thing right here, this knob right here, which is going to tighten or loosen the lower back tension. And then these are the 2 optional upgrades. So this is where you want to pay attention. So the first option upgrade is going to be the arms. So the most basic Steelcase Leap arms will only go up and down, whereas the upgraded one will not only be able to swivel and slide in and out, but it also be going to go forward and back. So that's a really easy one to tell. And then the second upgrade is going to be this lumbar adjustment here. It's literally a piece of plastic that sits in between the foam and the back, and it just goes up and down. And honestly, the arms are gonna be much harder to replace, so if you want adjustable arms, get a chair, get a used one with adjustable arms. This back lumbar thing is kind of a joke. This thing you can buy for maybe what, like 20, 30 bucks on the market, and it's super easy to just add yourself. You can even remove it yourself if you don't really like it. So that's that for features. In terms of fabric options, here's what David has to say.
As far as Steelcase fabrics go, obviously Steelcases, they use really high quality fabrics across the board. Almost all of their fabrics are going to be rated at 100,000 double rubs or more. What a double rub is actually a piece of cotton that they rub back and forth over the fabric. And if it goes back and forth once, that's a double rub. To be rated at extra heavy duty commercial grade fabric, you're going to be at 30,000 or more. So far surpassing anything that you need to be considered a super heavy duty fabric. I actually have fabric samples of all of the Steelcase, primary fabrics that we do see. If you're looking at used chairs, you're probably going to come across, probably these 3 are going to be your primary. So number 1 is going to be Buzz 2, and that's going to be a standard woven fabric. Woven versus knitted is going to be one of your primary major differences between fabrics. If you go up and walk up to most Steelcase chairs over the past 15, 20 years, most of them are going to have a woven fabric. It's going to be a little bit rougher to the touch, but it's going to last forever. Then you start getting into, what we're seeing a lot of now is going to be, this is Cogent Connect. That's going to be one of Steelcase's primary fabrics now. So if you're looking at a chair that's 10 years old or more, you're probably not going to see this fabric. But this is where we get into the knitted fabric. It's going to be much more breathable because of how it's constructed. I'm not sure if you can see it here, but I can kind of see through this fabric a little bit as I'm holding it up here. chair. The other primary is going to be Era, which is going to be their other kind of primary fabric today. Cogent Connect and Era are their kind of two go-to fabrics that we see if you're going to go purchase a new Steelcase chair today. And this is a woven fabric, so it's going to be more like the Buzz 2. It's going to be, again, a little bit rougher to the touch than a knitted fabric. You gain a lot of softness through the knitting process. It's actually a little bit of a two-tone, so you get a little bit of a texture to it. Even it's kind of a herringbone pattern. It's kind of a cool fabric. Obviously, you're going to want to go over, make sure there's no major stains, unless you're getting to that 15 to 20-year-old range and they're used every day. You might start to see some wear. Primarily, we see it on the kind of the front edge of the seat. That's what really takes the most abuse, because you got people moving the front of their legs around as they're working.
What does a worn fabric look like?
Yeah, so like I said, it's mostly where we see it's going to be on that front edge of the seat. So you might see some pilling on the fabric, or you might start to see where, yeah, you've got some wear marks, and that's when you're going to start to see lines in the fabric. If you can start seeing the foam, that's a true failure, and that's definitely replace that fabric. You always can replace the fabric. So you can take an older chair, throw new fabric on it, and it's going to look brand new. And that's one of the things that we do here, and we do offer that as a service as well as part of our remanufacturing process. We've got a couple of our fabrics here too. This is the Guilford of Maine Open House fabric, a woven fabric, not a knitted fabric. I always say it's closest to the Buzz 2. Then we've got obviously our new BioKnit fabric and you've got that on your green chair there as well. And you can see that that's going to be a knitted fabric just like the Cogent. Ours is a little bit thicker, so it's got a little bit more kind of give to it. It's a little bit more three-dimensional, and it's rated a little bit higher in double rubs. Both of our Open House and the BioKnit are both going to be rated at 250,000 double rubs as opposed to 100,000. If there's any sort of issues with the fabric, go ahead and send the pads to us. We can reupholster them for you, or find a local upholsterer that might be able to help you out.
If you guys are liking this video and you want to see a video on how to buy a used Gesture featuring David Crandall, David, how many likes would they have to put on this video?
I think we should go with how about 300? 300 likes. Go with 300. Like it, like it, like it.
I found that the Leap V2 ranged between $300 to $400. $300 would get you the base Leap V2, which is everything, like I said before, minus the fully adjustable arms, and then this lumbar tab in the back here that goes up and down. And with every feature that you add, it's gonna add another $50. So if you just have the arms, $350. If you have the arms and the lumbar, that would be $400. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, hey Dan, you just said this thing costs like 20, 30 bucks. Why am I paying $50 for it? That's not exactly how it's working here, right? You're buying the thing as a package. This thing costs probably $1,000, $1,200 new. And so, you can try to haggle if you want, although I highly recommend it. I love haggling, I think it's good, but I'm just telling you what I saw here. And now here's David Crandall from CrandallOffice.com to give you tips and tricks on what to look for when buying a used Leap.
So when we're looking at a Leap chair and figuring out how old that chair is, the first and easiest primary method is to turn the chair over, and underneath the seat is going to be a tag on the chair. And that chair tag is going to give you the actual manufacturing date of that chair. If you don't have access to that, or it's been removed, for example, we remove those tags by request of Steelcase when we do remanufacture our chairs. Then there's a couple of things that you can look for. You can remove the back pad, and sometimes there's a little sticker back there that'll have the date on the actual back frame. There's also a date printed on some of the chairs on the frame underneath the chair, actually on the arm mechanism. That said, as a general rule, the specific date is not terribly important. These chairs are so overbuilt that they really last for a long time. That said, there's a few specific things you want to look for that are related to the dates. If you're into a V1 Leap, February 16th of the year 2000 is going to be when they switched from the old pin activated cylinder to the standard top activated cylinder. That's a major one because those cylinders are very difficult to get a hold of, and they're very expensive when you do find them. The other primary date that we're looking at is going to be on a version 2, and that's going to be January 19th of the year 2009, and that's when they switched from the top activated to the side activated cylinder. If you do have an older chair with the old pin activated style cylinder, those are the ones you're going to want to be really wary of, because that's, the top activated, the side activated are easy to replace. They're easy to work with. The pin activated, the old style, is going to be, you're going to run into some issues there. Anybody that's selling that chair and you're doing your due diligence, just make sure to ask those questions. Anybody who kind of knows what they're talking about and is confident in their product is going to have no problem with allowing you to do that kind of exploratory surgery to make sure that you're getting exactly what they're telling you that you're getting. I'm a big proponent of people looking for used chairs in their used market, whether it's Facebook Marketplace, a used furniture dealer. You can find some incredible deals there as long as you know what you're looking for and you know what you're getting. You're going to be getting a chair that's probably going to be a little rough around the edges. So the first thing, just kind of look over the chair, give it a once over, spin it around, make sure there's no cracks in the frame. I've got a couple Leap chairs here that we'll show you. So make sure, check right here in the center of the ribbon here. We call this the ribbon. Make sure there's no cracks there. That's a fatal flaw in the chair. And so if there's a crack there, that's going to be a major problem, and it's going to be a very difficult one to fix and replace. And so the other primary area that we see structural failures on the Leap chair is going to be where the back connects to the actual frame. So you've got two bolts here. This is the one that we typically see issues with. And again, we've got some additional footage we'll share with you here. But make sure you're looking at that. Make sure there's no cracks in this part that connects the back to the actual frame of the chair. You're going to have a very, very difficult time fixing that. It'd be without any tools or knowing how the chair works or having access to those parts. We've got these chairs laying around all over the place. We've got a boneyard of chairs, so if we have that, we can fix that, and we'll replace that part and make sure that it's 100%. But if you run into that on a used chair, I would definitely just pass on it. It's not worth your time, not worth the hassle that you're going to deal with. Once you're beyond those are the two primary areas that I would just say 100% pass on. Beyond that, I would say, secondary things, you're going to go through and function test the chair. Make sure that the gas cylinder is working properly. It's going up and down properly. Make sure that the tilt lock is operating properly and it adjusts into those different positions on the variable stop tilt lock. You're going to go through, make sure the arms go up and down, in and out, make sure they're smooth. You can, and we do, rebuild the arms to make sure that they are operating properly. There should be a little bit of tension to them. They shouldn't be rattly or, too rattly or free floating. You should have you should have to kind of push it a little bit to move it. We rebuild those, and you can too. And that's why I would call that kind of a secondary one, is that you're able to do that if you have a little bit of know-how, and we can send you the parts to do it. But it's certainly not a deal breaker, but something to look out for. The other thing, we talked about fabric, looking for fabric wear and tear, looking for stains, that sort of thing.
Dave, I kind of did this whole buying used guide thing for Aarons, and one thing that I found was that some of the chairs, they did have a smell to them. Is there any way in which, I know you guys go through a sanitization process, but do you have any recommendations for how people can maybe get some of that smell off, or even get some of the stains off, like any products or any things that you do to get some of that off?
As far as smells, that can be a little bit tricky, and it's really going to kind of depend on what the smell is. And that's one of the reasons that we chose to tool a new seat pad for the Leap chair, because that's the one that's going to collect the most dirt, debris, grime, anything else from the years of use and sitting in the chair. And so that's why one of the reasons that we do choose to replace the entire seat pad. We don't just put we used to just put an additional layer of foam on top because it does compress a little bit over time. But the new seat pad is going to be the only way to truly get rid of some of that stuff. Anything that kind of gets soaked into the actual foam, you're going to have a very difficult time getting rid of. As far as fabric stains, there's a number of products out there. We're actually going through and we're testing a bunch of them right now, and we're going to give some recommendations, and I'll share those with you as soon as we're kind of done doing our testing. The other thing that we do encourage people to do, and that we've been doing for a long time, is to steam clean the chair. And so we actually built a big steam box that we put all the pads through. We don't do it with the seat pads on the Leap anymore because they're replaced, but any of the back pads and the seat pads on any other chair, we're putting them through a steam box that's going to fully engulf those in steam for about 4 or 5 minutes. And that's going to help sterilize, sanitize. It also helps kind of revitalize the foam. You don't have access to that at your home, but you do have access to things like handheld garment steamers, and that's what we started with. And we definitely recommend that as something that people can do to help clean their fabric and sterilize things a little bit. And it's a simple handheld steamer. You're going to just run that up and down over your fabric and into the foam. It's going to kind of go in past the fabric as well. And then just make sure you let that dry, fully dry. We let typically set that chair in those pads in front of a fan for, you know, a day or so. Make sure that all the moisture gets out of there, because you are going to add moisture to the chair, but that can help quite a bit as well.
Do you ever find any failures with the lower back tension knob?
Every once in a while you see failures. It's not a very common thing. What we do find though is that it's kind of got that soft rubber coating on the outside, and those do tend to get chewed up a little bit. And so we kind of have a, if it's chewed up beyond a level that we find acceptable, we will be replacing that component. But that's one that really, it just seems to collect kind of gouges and scrapes and scratches due to the soft nature. That said, it makes a nice grippy experience when you're turning it too. So it's kind of a give and take, but actual failure of the mechanism is pretty rare. Lastly, you know, look over the casters. That's the easiest one to replace. If they're rolling smooth, that's great. No need to replace them. A lot of times over years, they're going to collect dirt, debris, hair, that sort of thing. They're going to start gumming up and not rolling as well. That's probably the easiest thing to replace. So it's a pretty low on the totem pole thing. Last, you know, arm pads is going to be a similar thing to the casters. It's make sure they're not chewed up. Make sure they're, you know, they're probably going to have some dings and scrapes and scratches on them. But if you got gouges and chunks missing out of them, you're probably going to need to replace those as well. So you can find great deals. I've seen, you know, I spend a lot of time on Reddit in the office chairs community, and there's a lot of people that I see daily that, you know, post, I found a $15 Leap chair, and it's like, you know what, even if you got to throw some money into that, you won. You know, that's a sweet deal, and I encourage people to go after those. That said, you know, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more, you know exactly what you're going to get, everything, all the usable parts, everything you interact with on a daily basis is going to be brand new. That's where, you know, a company like us come in, and we can offer something that's going to be more predictable, has a warranty, is returnable. That would be the other thing I would ask if you are, you know, buying a used chair. If you're buying it from a random person, know that you're not going to be able to return that chair, and it's not going to come with any kind of warranty. Also, Steelcase's warranty does not transfer to a secondary user. So on that, when you purchase that from the original user, the warranty does not transfer to you. There's a lot of, you know, companies out there that might sell you a chair that's a little bit broken and then make you pay to return it, that sort of thing. You know, you want to avoid stuff like that, and that kind of translates into the local buying experience as well, is that if you're buying a chair and you can't return it, you're stuck with it. And so know what you're getting. If you spent $15 on that chair and you're stuck with it, well, that's probably not a big deal. But if you're going to spend $200-300 on a good, you know, what you think is a good chair, making sure you check it out is super important. Thanks, everybody. It was a pleasure.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Huge shout out again to David Crandall for joining me in this video. Until next time, guys, stay safe, and as always, stay honest.